Öyle mi? Ha, tabii. Hamdolsun. Diyelim ki
Bu yıl hiç şey olmadı. Nasip olmadı.
Evet, değerli katılımcılar, hepiniz hoş geldiniz.
Distinguished participants, welcome. This is the last session of the Congress. Therefore, since yesterday, we have seen a very intensive program. In this session, we will be talking about unlicensed electricity production along with our speakers. My name is Ramazan Usta. I'm electronics engineer and I'm working as a vice manager in the Renewable Energy General Directorate. In this session, we have valuable guests who will share their experiences about unlicensed WWPs. We have 4 different speakers. First speaker is Yalçın Kıroğlu. He is the head of Unlicensed Electricity Generation Association. Our second speaker is Cem Yalçın. He is the chairman of Nortel Energy. Less than 1 megawatt. This Nortel company is producing wind power, less than 1 megawatt. And we also have Serpil Köksal from Turkish Electricity Distribution Corporation of Turkey. And she is Deputy Manager of Distribution Networks Planning and Updating. And our last speaker this company has 250 kilowatt installed power capacity and they started production, power generation, and he owns this plant and he will be sharing with us his own experience in this regard. Each speaker will have 15 minutes. I kindly ask them. And the last couple of minutes will be allocated for the Q&A. Before proceeding with our first speaker, as you all know, the renewable energy resources are intensively supported in Turkey, and it is one of the agenda items of the government, and 30% access is the target for renewable energy. And for the wind energy, it is targeted to reach 20,000 megawatt. In order to reach this aim, there are some support mechanisms developed. Renewable energy resources support mechanism we have, and the producers from these resources in the framework of the purchase guarantee on the basis of dollar-cent, they give a purchase guarantee, and for the wind energy, $7.3. Some exempted production support, production support. We have many incentives in this regard. Our guests will be sharing these points in a detailed manner. And there is a guarantee of purchase for such production. As of the beginning of October, 250 kilowatt installed power. The first plant was founded in Balıkesir, Bandırma Organized Industrial Zone, and it is now generating power. And for the realization of this target, domestic generation usage is on the agenda. For the renewable energy resources, if domestic generation is being used, they are priced on the basis of item, and a total production is being added to the determined purchase pricing. And for the wind, it was increased up to $7.3 till $11.2. Our guest from Turkish Electricity Distribution Corporation will be giving detailed information in that regard. Wind power plants, as of October, she will be sharing the information with us, and the total power of the applied projects is around 20,000 kilowatt, and the number of approved projects is 6, and as I mentioned, 250 kilowatt wind power plant was already accepted in Balıkesir. Following this introduction, I would like to continue with our first speaker, Yalçın Kıroğlu. The floor is yours. Distinguished guests, good evening to everyone. Conference management left us as the last speakers so that we can keep more guests here at this time of the day. Distinguished chairman, he started his position in General Directorate of Renewable Energy. It has been 2 months. I hope that we will make you like the energy sector. As the unlicensed Electricity Production Association, you already know us. I don't want to give detailed information about that. I would like to attract your attention to a legal point of view. When we talk about unlicensed electricity production, 1 megawatt is the first thing that comes to our mind. Unlicensed electricity production is limited to 1 megawatt, but in spite of this fact, in the regulation of 2nd of October and the code, if the consumption, as long as the consumption is not sold to the grid, there is no limit. In this regard, wind power plants can be set up with a capacity of more than 1 megawatt. Let's say that you have a plant and you're consuming the electricity, and for the consumption purposes within this factory, for example, you can set up 2 megawatt wind power plant or 3 megawatt wind power plant, as long as you don't sell the surplus production to the grid. As for the market, where are we now? I have been active in the unlicensed wind sector for the last 2 years. The investors are not knowledgeable about the unlicensed wind power plants. We're talking about the licensed wind power plants. They're quite knowledgeable about the legal aspects. They are quite knowledgeable about the technical parts. But when we talk about unlicensed market, the biggest issue is the lack of knowledge of the potential investors about the sector. The producers and also the companies which have high amount of consumption, the farmers, the malls, the municipalities, we can see that there is a serious potential. With the unlicensed market information and the licensed electricity production, they are compared, but they say that this is what you're saying, but this is not the fact. The information they tell us is all about the licensed market. Therefore, we have great difficulty to explain the facts about the unlicensed energy production. In domestic production, there is still a long way to go in terms of incentives. As the association, we have a policy that's supporting the domestic production. In Turkey, we are currently talking about producing our domestic car, and all the materials and the equipments can be manufactured in Turkey. We have that capacity. Therefore, the organized industrial institutions should also be supported. Certification process takes quite long, and it is important in this regard as well. Let me give you some brief information about the market. Unlicensed electricity production, solar, bio, hydro, thermal. When we look at that, 4,846 applications we received as of 1st of October, and out of this number, positive evaluations are about 305, and which were rejected 849. And total capacity of positive 305 wind projects is 174 kilowatts. Therefore, there are 305 companies which are willing to set up WPP, and the total capacity is that, and the project application, WPP project application is 52, 5 positive, 5 negative, pre-approval 7, which was examined, and there are some lacking points 28, and it is 4 of them are at the level of approval. 20% of 305 people completed the next phase and applied to TEDAŞ, and we're expecting the rest to apply for the next stage as well. 20% is the ratio in which the positive approvals are coming back with the next stage. When we look at the market, what do we have in front of us? What are we talking about now? Support to local domestic production. I think there are lots of things we can do in this regard. In Europe, in China, if we are talking about turbine production, if we implement the big potential in Turkey, we need to, some more incentives can be provided in order to have the materials and equipment from Turkey. MILRES project, they're about to complete 500 kilowatt capacity. Last week I had a chance to pay a visit to the field, and MILRES project will start in a very nice location, and this is a national WPP project. When we talk about unlicensed electricity production, in the customers we have reference when you're looking for turbine purchase in the international arena, the international market. We can't find too many turbines, and the reference problem with the turbine manufacturers in the market, and also the brands are not known in the industry. When we look at the first 5 or 10 manufacturers of turbines, and when you say that let's purchase turbine from them, there is a serious problem when you talk about 1 megawatt production, electricity production, but you don't have too many options in terms of product type. Let's say that you found a turbine, one turbine, it's quite difficult to bring it to Turkey. Big turbine producers are not willing to sell only one turbine, because when they sell that turbine, the operation, the installation, and the maintenance costs are quite high. Therefore, there is a resistance to sell the turbine alone. For 2 projects, 2.5 megawatt wind turbine, in an unlicensed manner, they took their approval from the Renewable Energy General Directorate, and they received their letter of call, and a couple of projects are in the phase of evaluation. At the moment, 4 projects are about to be implemented. Each has 2.5 megawatt.
Pazarda bir hareketlilik var, hem de 1 megawattın üstündeki pazarda ise büyük kapasitelerde.
In the markets with big capacities, there is an alive notion. When we look at the market, there are many questions. I am planning to set up wind turbine for my house. It's not convenient under Turkey's circumstances, because the product diversification is quite low, and the project regulation is the same, even if it is less than 1 megawatt. And some amendments are going to be made to the project approval regulation as well. When we talk about project approval, we can relatively say that the most challenging part is the drawings required within the mechanical file demanded for the project. The project drawings, when you send them for the approval, the wind turbine, all the mechanical drawings are asked in a way that you can build them from scratch. Therefore, the producers are not willing to provide you with these drawings. We have serious challenges in procuring these drawings, and it takes too much of our time, and we are losing time in that regard. In one project, it took, for example, for a specific project, to take the drawings, technical drawings from a producer, it took 5 months, and the public authority is quite rightful to ask that, because when there is a problem with that parts, we should proceed these drawings in case of a failure. If they don't support us, we should find our way to find a solution, and a betterment is required in that regard as well. Maybe at the level of project, another institution can be approved as well in order to create the competition. When we look at the project approval, we don't have too many projects waiting in the queue. There are 860 projects in the unlicensed electricity project, 50 of which is wind and the rest is solar. There is a long queue in the solar power. In wind, thanks to Serpil Hanım and her team, they are trying not to make people wait too much in the queue. As for the application process in EDAŞ, Electricity Transmission Incorporation, there are some applications which receive a response 5 months afterwards. This is an unfortunate situation. In the cancellations of the applications, the trafo distribution centers capacity, we all know their capacity, but because of the line capacity, there are some applications which are cancelled, and there is a serious concern about how much rightful these decisions are, and the decisions given by the EDAŞ are interrogated by the sector. More than 1,500 applications are rejected by the authority. The biggest obstacle in front of our sector is the development approval. Development approvals, authorizations, takes like 8 months, especially in metropolitans. This time period should be shortened, and if possible, at least for the energy projects, there are some actions we have taken in cooperation with the Ministry of Environment and Urban Planning, and maybe for the energy projects, these authorizations might be exempted. For the energy projects, we can start production in a shorter period of time, but the development plan takes so much of time in the unlicensed wind power production, and the decision, the time of decision and the time of implementation has a time gap of 1.5 years. As for the negative applications, there is a structure is needed to develop the system. For the licensed, we have negative 850 negative loss, and 17 million TL has been spent in vain. The communicability ratio. When you want to connect a point to the grid, the short circuit transmission calculations should be higher than 70%. There are some examples. 1 megawatt, you would like to set up a system, and the connectivity ratio is 700, for example. And for the second installation, they let 700. 2 points can be given, but we cannot give more than that. But we discussed this issue with the Electricity Market Regulatory Authority, EMRA, and this ratio is going to be increased, and this ratio is going to be abolished, in fact. The consumption unification. This is of great importance for the wind power. The investors who have more than one companies and factories, let's say, instead of setting up a couple of turbines, small turbines separately, they are willing to set up only one big turbine and distribute the electricity to their facilities. The production and the consumptions used to be unified. Before the New Year's EU, Electricity Market Regulatory Authority is expected to change the regulation. Therefore, it's going to be more economic. Let's wrap up. You're running out of your time. Last but not least, we have a recommendation about this process. In Turkey, many transactions are being done online under the name of e-state, but for the licensing process, they're still going on manually. All of these processes should be carried to the online platform. We know that the correspondence time with the post office is around 15-30 days. Therefore, it takes too much of time. YEGEM gives the information through online means, but between EDAŞ and TEİAŞ, this process should be put onto online platform. For the Renewable Energy General Directorate, within the process, if that's the approval authority, and if we are producing renewable energy, then the institution should be more active. If all the applications are going to this general directorate, they should be receiving them in the online platform, and the relations should be through general directorate. The subscriber should not go to the municipality. If possible, they should send their application to General Directorate of Renewable Energy. The subscriber will get rid of the necessity of going to the EİAŞ, TEİAŞ, TEDAŞ, General Directorate. If we can manage the process from single center, then it's going to be easier for the subscriber. In licensed electricity production, it makes us very happy to see the first wind power plant, unlicensed wind power plant, is active, is operative now. We have a great potential, especially in the domestic turbines, and in the capacity is more than 2 megawatt. We have great potential. The processes in the public will be shortened, I hope, and we will open the path along the market. Thank you very much listening to me.
Evet, Yalçın Bey'e biz de teşekkür ediyoruz bu sunumu için.
Thank you, Yalçın Bey, for this presentation. Thank you. As GEM is getting prepared, we have a couple of helpful notes for you, because it was included in Yalçın Bey's presentation. The Renewable Energy Directorate is an online platform where you can submit your applications for licensed and non-licensed projects. Actually, this is, the directorate is now working on an online platform. It's not finished yet, but it will be online. Once the directorate has its online platform, the applicants can easily follow up the status of their applications via email and SMS. It's going to be a software, and the directorate is now asking opinion from the stakeholders to better understand how far, or and discussing the scope of the software. And that was my little note. Thank you, dear participants. Thank you very much for joining us in this last session. In the previous session, in the next room, we discussed local production. And we learned the details about the millet project. 3 years ago, Turkish turbines, people said you cannot do it, it won't work, and no one will buy it. But now we made it, it works, and it is operational. The first investor commissioned a 250 kilowatts of turbine, and another. For the next summer, we will increase our capacity. But then let's be clear. Yalçın summarized all the details about, and he also talked about the issues related to regulations and everything. And I want to talk about how much will it cost, what is the break-even point. For example, Sermetal Bandırma organized industry project. The contract was signed in 2011. Our first turbine was commissioned in Söke in 2004. That was a battery-powered system. And then we have a grid-connected turbine in 2009. But since then, on the last week, we could connect this to the grid. It's a long road to get connected. But for the first time, we were permitted to connect our turbine to the grid. The problem was with EDAŞ. There were also issues with the industrial zone, but we could solve it eventually. And during this week, EDAŞ regional manager will pay a visit to our office, and in consensus, we will find a solution as soon as possible. We have 60 people on board, invested 15 million in R&D. After 10 years of know-how and 2 years hard work, we first produced our 250 kilowatts in 2013, and now we're designing our first 1 megawatt turbine. Sermetal, together with Sermetal, we have another turbine in Ali Ağa organized zone, but Sermetal was permitted for connection. These are not oversized small turbines, but these are undersized large turbines. Anything below 1 megawatts for us are preliminary works of the large turbines in the future. Can an SME install a 1 megawatt turbine in their garden? Well, the highest mast is 60 meters for us. For ease of connection, the largest capacity is 400 kilowatts. We need to focus on efficiency. You know, people are not happy with EDAŞ. They want to install a turbine and get disconnected. That's not going to happen. As long as you follow the rules, we can install several hundreds of turbines. If the capacity is below 500 kilowatts, but for larger capacities like 1 megawatts, there is further work to be done. KER said that this best practice. It's a best practice because, I mean, they managed to collaborate with us without ending up in the court. Because, you know, when we said we're going to work with you, we gave our commitment to closely collaborate, and we did, and they did. There are best practices in Turkey. And we always, listen to them, improve our products and components. And yes, we are taking risks. Why turbines below 1 megawatts are important? It is shorter than 60 meters. There is no area impact report required, and it's easier to get connection permits. If you want to install larger turbines, you might end up with additional permissions, and you might need to import some of the components. As you can see, all of our products can be monitored on the internet, and you can get reports 24/7. The thing is, we are below 60 meters, and we want to cut on energy costs. We want to save on energy costs. But then this turbine works between 4 to 6 meter per second wind. I mean, our turbine blades should be class 3. There should be a control system, and we are talking about it should start turning at 1.6 meter per second, and at 4, 5, 6, and 7 meters per second, the production should be on an economical scale. We started in 1993. And in the 2000s, we commercialized our products now, and they became commercially available. And then we were concerned about the connectivity permissions, and we sold turbines to the US. In 2008, we sold 2 turbines connected to the grid in the US. In the US, it takes 2 days that you can have this net metric double directional meters. This is our head count. Blades. All components are produced in Turkey. None of them are licensed to any foreign manufacturer, and we are designing and manufacturing all the turbines with a capacity below 1 megawatts. Composite material and fibers and everything is sourced from Turkey. And then there is the Turkish Standards certification. The Turkish Standards Institute doesn't certify us. They don't know how to do this. But then there is Turkish Lloyd, and accredited by the Turkish government. And we are working with Turkish Lloyd. It's a 40 years of entity. Well, the turbines below 1 megawatt are also important for training. You know, you have to train them for working on high altitude. Your manuals and technical writing should be world class, and all the equipment should be produced so that your personnel can properly use it. 5 years maintenance cost is at several thousands of dollars, but I mean in 5 to 6 years you reach to a break-even point. These are certifications and documents, and this is our concentrated solar power system. It is done with mirrors, and it helps you produce heat. If you are producing steam and other chemical processes, this is just a solution I wanted to mention. There is no need to connect to the grid. We can use multiple blades in our turbines. Just in one day, we can replace your blade, and sometimes we change your blades for free of charge if it is part of the contract. We have 24, 26, 30, and 32 meters in diameter. But then these are not simple things. I mean, you know, there are companies eager to construct this. It's not a simple thing to do. But then if people are willing, committed, and have the capacity, we offer them all our infrastructure. As said, all this production, this is all local production. This is TWEC conference last year. This is a 250 kilowatts of turbine, and we installed it in our garden in a year. And next year, hopefully, we will exhibit 500 kilowatts turbine. And Northel also aims to build a school for renewable energy. because it is possible to install 7 to 8 thousands of turbines, but who will service to them? We don't have a middleman to service, and we will build the school that will be 24 classrooms, and at the moment we are giving all the support to train the students in the neighborhood. The red spots show the turbines we did from 2009 to 2012, and the green ones are the ones we sold after Sermatal. So in 1.5 months only, we installed 7. And in our all entire life, we installed up to 40 turbines. We are producing for Turkish Lloyd, Duratec, Şişecam, Rel, Berdan, Metix. There are hundreds of places, and then we are also working with several regional entities. And last but not the least, I have a video to show if the technicians allow me. We want to become a global brand of Turkey. We have a marketing company in the US, we are opening a company in Greece, and we are ambitious to introduce our brand worldwide. Can we run the video now, please?
Çok teşekkür ederim. Buradaki
Thank you very much. The most important point is that 1.6 millisecond, and it stays in the production 2.5 seconds, and it starts in production in 3 seconds. And the high-level turbines start to turn in 4.5 seconds. Therefore, the design is of great importance. We should be very careful about these points as the investors. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Cem Bey. As a good example of domestic production, I hope that the numbers of domestic producers will increase. Now, Serpil Hanım, the floor is yours. Distinguished Chairman, distinguished guests, good evening. We're not only looking at the wind projects, we're also looking at the treatment mods and some other kinds of projects as well. I prepared the presentation in a way that I will start from the application process. Our main focus is the project preparation and temporary acceptance. How do we accept the projects? What are the criteria for that? I will try to brief you about these matters. As you all know, this process has been explained many times. Unlicensed production process following 4628 Electricity Market Code. The applications of the distribution companies started, and at this level, the number of wind projects increased. 2.4 kilowatt turbine came as an application, and there is an article saying that don't approve the projects without the approval of TA, and we wrote this back to the ministry. There is a protocol called STA, and it expired, and the renewal efforts started in 19th March of 2014. It was renewed. Previous projects waited till now. Following the approval of TA protocol, we are quite hopeful. The numbers are quite high, the numbers of application, and there are at least 10 wind power projects with TA protocol. We are trying to finish the projects that are coming to us. In terms of numbers, there is nothing we can do as TEAŞ. In the WPPs, there are two important matters. One of which is the technical evaluation report as the connection view. When you apply to distribution company for the connection, they're asking to you. There's nothing that the investor should do about that, but following the connection opinion, while the project is being prepared, TÜBİTAK Bilgem should be applied. This is an individual application. I will make reference to the previous figures. Many investors received a connection opinion, didn't make an application for TA protocol. They got the connection opinion, but when it comes to practice, these projects may not be implemented. In the framework, in the scope of unlicensed production, what kind of activities do we conduct? Installed power cap is known as 1 megawatt, but as stated by our chairman, if you're gonna consume what you produce, then there is no upper limit, no cap, not in renewable energy, not in biogas, not in waste gas. There are some cogeneration projects. There is a stipulation of 80% efficiency. If you're not gonna sell the power you generate, then there is no limit. And the solid waste treatment installations and the treatment mud installations, we don't have any upper limit. This is a summary table. There are some prices in the renewable energy power plants. 1 megawatt is the limit, but on the basis of resource, it is 1 megawatt. Similarly, those who use the electricity that they generate without selling them, they can't sell the energy in cogenerations and plants as well. There is the precondition of 80% efficiency. The solid waste treatments that was taken in the framework of the license, the waste treatment, there is no upper limit for the installed capacity. Many projects came to TEDAŞ and we accepted the installations. And the prices are being determined by the tables. These points were already mentioned in the Congress. On the basis of the wind, the share is 7.3 and it is added to the price. As of the temporary acceptance date, during the following 10 years, YEKDEM has to buy the surplus electricity, and for the domestic production support, the time limit is 5 years. The applications are being made to the distribution companies, but I would like to give you a couple of information about that. All the real and legal persons, they can make an application to the distribution or the organized industrial zone or TİAŞ. The only condition is to have a subscription as the consumption installation. There are some applications, there are some documents which should be filled in. The cogeneration efficiency document, the single line schema, the competency document for the field in which the WPP will be installed. There are some limitations for the unlicensed WPP. In order to make the generation, the production and the consumption installations should be within the same distribution region. Temporary and mobile subscription group cannot set up production facility, and the materials should be under the guarantee period and they should be manufactured in the last 5 years. And in the generation installation, when there is a failure, the connection should be cut completely so that it doesn't give any harm to the whole system. You took your connection opinion. I would like to attract your attention to 2 points. They first give you connection opinion. Come here and connect to the grid from this point. If you have any objection here, if you didn't like the connection point to the grid, you have the right to object, which is 1 month. Within 1 month, you have the right to object, and you should look at the alternative connection points. When you receive the letter of appeal, you cannot go back. You lose your right to make an objection. Therefore, in the phase of connection opinion, if you have any objection, make your objection within 1 month. You will lose that right after you receive the letter of appeal. One of the most frequently asked questions is, what are we going to do following the connection opinion? After that, the letter of appeal is being sent. After that, the only thing you're supposed to do is to prepare the projects and bring them to TEDAŞ. And this should be completed within 90 days. You're given 180 days following the letter of appeal, and within first 90 days you're supposed to bring your projects to TEDAŞ. Otherwise you lose your rights to set up such a facility. And if within 180 days, if the project has not been approved, an additional 3 months are being given. The project file, as long as the project file is in TEDAŞ, if we gave it back, we don't give such a right, but if it is still in TEDAŞ, we can say that the projects are being examined in order so that we can give them to the distribution company. 180 plus 90 days, you have 270 days in order to complete the licensing project, unlicensed projects. There is a transition project about TA protocol. In the practices after 2015, TA protocol will go on in parallel with the project. Therefore, you're supposed to present the TA protocol to the distribution company. This will be valid as of 2015. As of the connection agreement date, for the facilities, hydraulic facilities that will be connected from YG, you have 3 years. The other, if you're gonna connect from the AG, then you will have 1 year. Real or legal persons that are making production till the production facility temporary acceptance is being accepted, an authorized body should be there. Along with the code of 6446, this is a new arrangement. This is a little bit challenging for the wind power, but there's a high amount of demand. In the past, 500 kilowatt connection opinion receivers want to change their capacity. You can change your project capacity in the first month of the application, and the distribution company will make the evaluation along with the other applications and prepare a result. Following the signature of the connection agreement, then the installed power capacity might be changed. You already decided how many turbines you will be installing, therefore it's gonna be less likely for the wind power to change the installed capacity. Therefore, we are in touch with the energy market regulatory authority in that regard. And for the transfer of the production facility, as long as the temporary acceptance is being completed, they can be licensed and become unlicensed, or they can be unlicensed and become licensed. The connection power, the connection criteria, the installed power, if it is less than 5 kilowatt, they will be connected from the AG level with single phase, and if it is higher than 5 kilowatt, they will be connected to the grid with 3 phases. The trafo.
Trafosu, yani şebeke trafosu. Burada da trafo gücü.
And the power of the transformer, the connection authority can be given up to 30% of the project. %30 of the transformer and 10% of the other. Therefore, for 400 kVA transformer, total capacity is 120 kilowatt and the allocation is 40 kilowatt. If the transformer belongs to the individual, then they might connect an WPP to the grid. This is an example of AD connection. Production and consumption. This is a consumer with an individual transformer. In accordance with the regulation, two meters are required. It is double-phased meter, and this is used for the bill. We all ask for 2 meters in all projects. Double-sided meters should be connected to the project, and this is an example of OG connection. We are doing this connection to building type transformers, the main meter and an inventory meter, and we are connecting them to the system. It is called as the OG connection. We have a little bit challenges in this connection. A system which can be connected to AG and connecting them to OG is bringing additional cost. Therefore, we should be very careful at the stage of connection because the changes might not be reversed. There is a declaration about the connection criteria from AG. There are some parameters. The additional equipment should be operating before the acceptance. The distribution companies should also be in cooperation with that. And these are the connection criteria from YG. Please wrap up, Serpil Hanım. WPP and temporary acceptance legislation. Of course, the projects are prepared in accordance with the specifications. All the projects are based on many regulations like the electricity installations project regulation, electricity facilities acceptance regulation. We are looking at the criteria by taking these regulations as a basis. As you all know, before its privatization, TEDAŞ used to distribute the electricity. Many specifications we have in that regard, all kinds of materials, the concrete, the hermetic type connection. There are many technical specifications in that. As the standards change, they're updated. We have that on the page of TEDAŞ. And the energy transmission line, the cable installation procedure basics. We are taking these as a basis and we are getting the projects in that regard. And for the WPP, we have 61,400 WPP standards. Bence kimse yok.
Biz mutlaka bize projede işte hangi türbin geldiyse bu türbünün tip sertifikasının
the type certifications.
Daha önce çok sayıda nasıl diyeyim sahte belge geldi.
We received a number of fake documents recently, so we are very careful. the validity of the type certificate. We want this to be legalized. Other colleagues also said Turkish Lloyd also certifies the wind turbines. They are accredited to that. We forward local producers to Turkish Lloyd. The wind power WVP WP project files have a typical format that includes the administrative documents, technical calculations, and then electrical and mechanical construction files, and then engineers review them from the company and from our side. All administrative documents, technical calculations, and other pieces. And then there's energy transmission line projects are also reviewed. That's how we deliver the project presentation. I don't have all the breakdown, but on TEDx.gov.tr we have a new page dealing with this, and you can find further details on project applications and approval criteria. That includes wind, biogas, and we will continue adding content to this web page. So please visit this page, preliminary project. Well, we did a number of preliminary projects because the development agencies and the municipalities, they ask for an approved project. And the regulations permitted us to introduce this preliminary approval. Because before we know your turbine, we cannot approve the project. We need to know the turbine first. But then the preliminary project is not the real project, and you cannot sign a grid agreement with this. That is very important. That's how we approve them. Well, if you want to submit a project, you need to put them in one folder. We also ask for all the soft copies in a CD-ROM, and we ask for 180 days, and we follow it up. We follow up the 180 days. We have a project management program. We tell them that you have to follow it, and we do this to 90% of all the applications. Then we approve them, and then we invite them to contact the distribution company within a month after we approve the application. Now that you built your power plant, there are some preparations to complete. Some companies complain about the procedures, but then we are bound with the regulations, and it is, in my opinion, clear. There is a temporary acceptance first, or temporary approval. You're supposed to ask for a temporary approval and then add certain documents listed on this slide. You need to get required approval from the distribution company to do all the tests. These are the contents of TEDASH approval folder. There's a long list, the authorized signatories, certain measurements and everything. You're supposed to submit all these documents to TEDASH. We have a board which reviews the temporary approval submissions.
Söyleyeyim. Hangi testleri yapacağız? Mahallenin
And there's a number of tests we are asking for. And we encourage you to contact us to better understand and clarify which type of tests are required. They are important because wind turbines we need to confirm the claimed capacities. You know, we do a test and we increase and we try to run all the tests to confirm the technical specs of the turbines, and then this temporary approval. If the test results are approval, then you're supposed to go and approval from the local governor, and then the plant is commissioned, energized and commissioned. Then if it is approved, it is circulated. Serpil, can you just wrap up? And these are the tests we run in the temporary approval process. And this technical interaction analysis. Starting from 2007, we have a number of wind projects in Turkey. And some of these projects were granted certain rights. If you cannot obtain your technical interaction analysis until the end of this year, your licenses will not be valid any longer. So you have to check which types of permits and certifications you are obliged to have. And for the new wind projects, there are new requirements. Your project and impact analysis or interaction analysis should be submitted to the distribution company. And they are all listed on the YEGEM and TİH websites. People say until 60 meters there is no technical interaction in it, but 60 meters is not the height of your mast. It is the height of your blade end. If from the floor to the end of your blade it is 60 meters, then you don't need further approval. But if it goes beyond 60 meters, you are obliged to obtain a technical interaction certificate. It takes only 3 to 4 months. It's not a big deal. You can get it with ease. This is the first approval, and thank you very much.
İzninizle küçük bir saptama yapmak istiyorum.
Allow me to add a note. Everything Serpil said, we do that. Investors, you know, yes, it's a challenge, but I mean, as Serpil said, I mean, TEDASH is always on your side. We support you. The regulation is tough. It's very demanding. Because as Yalçın said, we are moving from non-licensed system to a licensed system, and we have to do this together with the investors, and we do it. Thank you. Thank you, Serpil. And thank you, Cem. The last speaker is Resul Kerse from Kerse Metal. Resul, the floor is yours. Dear guests, good evening. Today, I want to tell you how we decided to launch the first non-licensed wind power turbine in Turkey. And let me briefly introduce our company. For 9 years, we are operating in Bandırma industrial zone. We are producing galvanized wires and other material. And the decision to invest in wind power was made by our board members when they were traveling from Izmir around Akhisar. They entered to a windmill or a blade workshop. And these were small turbine blades. I mean, they aim to produce small turbines to power the street lamps in our factory. It was good in the beginning, but on a bad weather day, our small windmill was destroyed because of the storm. And then we realized that having a turbine is not a simple job to do. We first analyzed how to do this, and we decided to go with Nortel, a local company. We signed a contract with Nortel, and it was not easy in the beginning, and there were a number of challenges during the investment, because we were one of the first to invest in a local company, a local turbine manufacturing company. We prepared all the documents like we were going for a licensed system, and the regulations were changing almost on a daily basis, and we had to follow them. Like Serpil gave an example. Like in the beginning, the organized industrial zone didn't inform us, and they said we could connect to the Gönen main substation transformer. I mean, connecting to a substation which is 20 kilometers away was so expensive. That's what they asked us on the first place. Then we discussed this with government offices, and we finally agreed to connect to the substation in our factory. In the beginning, we were very pessimistic, because in the US commissioning takes 1 week. You know, we were expecting 1 month to 6 months. However, the procedures were lengthy, and that made us very pessimistic. But then our resolve was strong. We were committed, and we knew the reward would be great. Serpil gave another example. She said, if companies don't have their own substation, they are supposed to connect to the substation of the industrial zone. Like, say we want to invest in wind power, and it is 250 kilowatts. Well, when building a 250 kilowatts of wind turbine, and someone assumed that someone invests in a solar panel, until 2 megawatts, you can connect to the local substation. But if you are producing more than 2 megawatts, you have to ask for additional permits from the government. So unless you have your own transformer, you have your own substation, that may be a disadvantage or an advantage depending on your perspective. So we wanted to be one of the first investors, and we didn't want to resell our production because we were consuming more than our production. But if you are producing more than your production, and if you are doing this locally, because the foreign investors were given a feed-in tariff at a rate of $7.3. With a local producer, it goes up to, if you have a local producer, your feed-in tariff goes up to 11.5 cents. So it's an advantage to work with a local manufacturer. The reason of current account deficit of Turkish economy is because we are importing too much. And we thought collaborating with local manufacturers will help meeting the trade deficit in Turkey. And we want to encourage Turkish government to offer further subsidies and incentives to local developers. A number of development agencies are offering grants and favorable interest rates. So if any one of us wants to invest in this, our story can be taken as a benchmark, as a good practice, and I'm sure you can learn from our mistakes and do a better job. I want to thank everyone who supported us in this challenging process, and we hope that this investment will add value to Turkey, and we want to wish best of luck to the new investors. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Evet, Resul Bey'e de teşekkür ederim.
Thank you, Resul. This was nice and quick.
Şimdi salondan sizler katılımcılarınızı
Now I want to invite the participants to share their questions and comments and feedback. Do you have any further remarks or questions? Please introduce yourself first and also address your question to the relevant panelists. Yes, this gentleman, please hand the microphone. 5 Energy Incorporated. We are the second local producer after GEM. We can produce magnetic supported wind turbines. Well, dear Deputy Director, we have issues with the paperwork. We requested Turkish Standards Institution to certify us, but now you are forwarding us to Turkish Lloyd. I know Yalçın is senior than us, and they invested more. We invested $2 million. We have 18 people on board, and we wanted to invest in other areas, but Turkish Lloyd is asking for 40,000 euros for each model. I have 7 models. I need to pay 280,000 euros to get certified by the Turkish Lloyd. That's huge. I cannot pay it. This will push me out of the league. So my immediate request is to incentivize this. And because Turkish Lloyd is now acting as a monopoly, and they are charging the way they want to charge. And then another issue is, if there's a strong wind in any region, rich big holding companies already own the licenses. So for ordinary citizens of this nation like me, we have smaller parts. We have organized zones and the playing grounds, and we can only offer smaller size projects. I'm happy, I'm not complaining, but the paperwork is taking long and the certification is very expensive. I mean, why not forward us to a local municipality? I'm happy to deal with a local municipality. I mean, for example, I can build turbines for local municipalities. You know, small towns and their municipal offices. We can just give them turbines, and they will save a lot on their energy costs. I know there is a lot of incentives from the Ministry of Agriculture and agencies of development. But then, to get an incentive from a development agency, I have to invest everything, and once they say, yes, you've done it right, they pay me after. I want to get paid before and during the investment, not after 2 years. Otherwise, I cannot survive. I mean, our equity is not enough to sustain this equation. So we kindly expect you to remedy this. Thank you. We've been dealing with the Turkish Standard Institution, and Turkish Standards Institution was interested in the first place. And we told them that we are expecting their support. Well, I understand your concerns, and I think you have a number of you are right in a number of aspects. We are encouraging Turkish Standards Institute to play a more active role. We are also dealing with other stakeholders, and as Turkish government, we will always be on your side, and I will personally attend to these matters and do my best to support you. Well, I was the first applicant to Turkish Standards Institute back in 2007. I always paid their duties and fees, and first time this certification came up, we already invested $6 million, and that was a huge disappointment because Turkish Standard Institute said they cannot do it. After I invested $6 million, Turkish Standard Institute said they cannot do it. Then I went to Greece. The Greeks asked me 100,000 euros, asked from me. And then I went to TÜV in Germany. They said, transport your turbines, and they wanted to charge me 200,000 euros. Then we were desperate, and we lost all our hopes. So from this perspective, you are right on, given your scale. I understand you are a small company, but Turkish Lloyd saved our lives because they only ask 40,000 euros. Compared to Germans, they are doing them a great favor. And to do that, Turkish Lloyd had to go through accreditation, and it took them 2.5 years. What is the solution? All the producers, I mean, development agencies will incentivize. I mean, if there is a project, I mean, if you design your project correctly, you can they can give you grants. I mean, Turkish Standards Institute is not there, I understand, but I mean, I think Turkish Lloyd is doing a good job. They are not a monopoly. I mean, but I understand it's a better idea to have more providers. Just a further note, and I totally agree with what you said. That's why I wanted to discuss certification. When and how they could build the first 1 megawatt turbine, the German government and the Dutch government, they paid 1 million euros of grants to the producers, 1 million. And after that 1 million grants, the producers could come up with this 1 megawatt of power plants. And Turkish government is committed to support local investors. Turkish government has cost gap, a government agency supporting small and medium-sized enterprises. We are happy to share our laboratories, and COSGAP also subsidizes certification and licensing of SMEs. So I will also take this to COSGAP and talk to the manager. Any questions? Abdullah from Erdem Enerji. I'm dealing with wholesale power sales. And then we're also working on power generation modules. We have one question. Turkey has power shortages from time to time. Investors want to invest in renewables, but when there is a power shortage, that doesn't help. Because sometimes it takes 3 years. There's a planned outage, power outage. So I don't know if this is possible technically and from a regulatory point of view. Renewables can help preventing power outages, but it is very costly. We are assuming an investor finds all the finances and then builds the plant and then needs to store the power. These are all very expensive things. And what do you want to say about this? Normally, if there is no energy on the grid, you cannot connect to the grid. But if you have a factory and if you have your wind turbine, you can continue powering your own plant. You cannot give power to the grid if there's an outage, but you can continue powering yourself. But then you have to choose the right model and connection model. As Serpil said, it is technically possible. It's also the regulations permit that. It's a matter of design. We don't have as frequent outages as we had in the past. Distribution companies should take the burden and minimize the outages, otherwise your investment will not be feasible. Because if the grid goes down, you cannot sell your production because of the volatility of renewables. Like sun goes on and off, wind goes on and off. It may not be technically feasible. Thank you. I'm from Çorum, a rural town in Turkey. I'm from the municipality. Municipalities are subject to the public procurement law. Since we are a public entity, this public procurement law is really binding, and it forces us to take the long road. When I submit my forms to YEGEM and TÜBİTAK, I have to write a blade diameter and I have to select a turbine. But I did that arbitrarily without any tests. Now I am expected to go for a tender. Now I'm confused. Am I supposed to rewrite all the technical specifications and resubmit my application to TÜBİTAK and all the Turkish government officers, or can I amend the technical specs on my own? Otherwise, all my efforts will go wasted. Thank you. Serpil? Well, I need to see your papers. I'm not sure what exactly you're talking about. If you cannot get your permits until the end of this year, your licenses will be lost. But I mean, we have to go through your papers. No, I filed my submission. When did you obtain your call for tender? It was February. Then I also submitted my application to the portal you said, but the turbine I used was just a model, was just an example, because they forced me to specify a blade diameter. Because the turbines, you know, I mean the templates, they asked me all the specs. So what happens if a different blade wins the tender? If their blade diameter is 1 meter shorter, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to update all the forms? Am I supposed to update all my files after the tender, or am I supposed to ask for a new call for tender? I mean, if I understand correctly, you already lost your chances because your time is limited as per the new law. I mean, if you cannot complete all this in 1.5 months, all your rights will be lost. The rest, you know, updating a couple of figures, I could help you with that. But I mean, let's talk this in private after the session. We have someone from Yegem. Do you want to clarify how this municipality will proceed? If you change your turbine and blade, the power, your power specs will change. Well, I mean, if this is just a small update, I can also update my records and just approve it. I mean, we have to discuss this on a case-by-case basis. And there's a lot of projects that fall into that category. The comments of the gentleman is not audible, I'm sorry. But the response is, we can help you solve the issue. If your installed capacity will remain same, but with a different turbine spec, you can update it, and we can do the paperwork for you. Don't worry about it. Well, thank you, Sabahattin, and thank you, our guest from Çorum. My question goes to Cem Yelchin and Resul Kerse. My name is Saadettin Cesur. I am from TAV Airport Enterprise. We're operating local airports in Turkey. I understand Cem sold a number of turbines to the U.S. and now you have a company in the U.S. And I understand some of the procedures are taking too long. And then you updated your versions, and then what is next? I understand. I mean, will you continue your operations, and will you have similar installations in other industries? Our first turbine connected to the grid belongs to Pelikan Food Company. It was in Ayvalık. I don't want to disclose the name but the grid operating company said, commission your turbine and I will cut your power. That's what they told us. So until 2011, a lot of turbines, I mean, we connected to the grid, but I mean, we weren't licensed. Otherwise, we could not operate. We weren't licensed, we weren't permitted, but we did it, I confess. But then our customers, they really supported us. And they allowed us to connect to the meters, and we used the power in the, and we did this partly for our R&D purposes. But then we followed all the regulations, but the regulations were not in place. And then we communicated this to all the stakeholders. But I mean, no one was expecting a simple licensing application to take 7 years. I said, luckily we didn't have a court, but that doesn't mean there was a risk of a court. I was just, it was just a joke. At the moment, it takes 60 to 70 days to get the permissions for connection. It's like 6 folders of documents and paperwork you're supposed to submit. And we are happy to assist our customers. We tell them it takes 6 years or 5 years to reach break-even point. And we never ask for any additional fees to help this. And we always wanted to be constructive because GEM represents a local company. There are a lot of European manufacturers, and we thought, why not in Turkey? We Turks want to produce cars, and why not produce a wind turbine? We always stayed on the constructive criticism side, and we were always tolerant, and I believe we ended up with positive results. The last 3 questions.
Orta Karadeniz Kalkınma Ajansı'ndan geliyorum.
We were informed that there are no foreigners in the room. We are stopping interpretation, so if anyone is listening, please hold up your hand. We were informed that there are no foreigners in the room. If anyone listening to translation, please raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll stop. Okay, we stop. Thank you.
Getirdi. Bu konuda bir girişiminiz var mı ya da bakanlık nezdinde olacak mı? Çünkü rüzgar yatırımları için yer alanları iyi alanlar diye düşünüyorum. Teşekkür ediyorum.
Evet, biz teşekkür ederiz. Buyurun Yalçın Bey.
Çok teşekkür ederim bu soru için. Bundan yaklaşık 9 ay önce Sayın Maliye Bakanı Mehmet Şimşek'le bir görüşmemiz oldu. Sayın Bakan'la biz şunu arz ettik. Dedik ki özellikle güneş enerjisi yatırımlarında 1 megawattlık bir kurulum için minimum 17 dönüm, normalde de 20 dönüm bir alana ihtiyaç var. Bu alanlar Türkiye'de tarımla uygun alanları bile güneş enerjisi için kullanmaya yönelik bir sektörde oluşmaya başladı. Bir yandan da devletin elinde olan hiçbir tarım yapılmayan ve devlete getirisi olmayan alanlar var. Dedi ki Sayın Bakan, bu alanları eğer lisanssız elektrik üretim kullanımına açarsak, bunların devlet tarafından 40 yıllığına, 49 yılına kiralanması suretiyle hem lisanssız elektrik üretim yatırımcıların bizim için değerli olan tarım alanlarına yönelmesini engellemiş oluruz. Hem de atıl durumda olan arazilere devletimize bir kazanç kapısı elde etmiş oluruz. Keza rüzgar içinde, tüm şey içinde bu görüşümüz kabul gördü. Sayın Bakan onay verdi. Yönetmelik çalışmaları yapıldı ve Şubat gibi de yanlış hatırlamıyorsam Maliye Bakanlığı tarafından yönetmeliği yayınlandı. Mera alanları ile ilgili dediğiniz gibi şeyden haberdarız. Arzu etmediğimiz bir alan. Fakat mera alanları ile ilgili hukuki yönden de bir takım konular var. Oluşacak gelir kim tarafından paylaşılacak, kime ait olacak, kim karar verecek? Bunun sektör lehine düzenlenebilmesi için tekrar bir çalışmamız var. Daha henüz sonuçlanmadı ama üzerinde çalıştığımız bir konu. En son Sayın Tarım Bakanı ile 2 ay önce bir araya geldik. Yaklaşık 4,5 saatlik bir bize vakit ayırdı, eksik olmasın. Bunları da pek çok şeyin üzerinden geçme şansımız oldu.
Well, hopefully we will give you good news about this. But I don't have anything positive about it at the moment. Thank you.
On the field of battery storage, and I want to report one example of an international company who has already 200 megawatt of battery storage capacity on the grid and is planning in Ireland 100 megawatt battery storage in front of New York, Long Island 300 to 400 megawatt battery storage, and has a pipeline of over 1 gigawatt battery storage. And the argumentation is that battery storage is faster available, it's economically more reliable, and it's better to balance the new energy compared to classic technologies. For example, in America and other countries, gas power plants are not economically operational anymore because the fully load hours you need to balance the electricity compared to renewable energy demand, because it's very short and not fully covering the operational cost. It's only the second alternative. So we are seeing a huge market coming up also in Turkey to balance the renewable energy, and this is already existing and further developing technology. So Turkey has the capability of renewable energy, and it will be accessible due to balancing power and storage capability. And I think the technology is not so far away for realizing this potential. Thank you very much.
Biz de teşekkür ediyoruz bu değerli katkısı için.
Thank you very much for this contribution. One last question. NRE Energy Antalya, Serkan Özkan. We are developing a new turbine design for Turkey and the world. We want to benefit from local investment support scheme, and we want to know more about the regulations. We are a little bit scared. And we have a floating turbine. It's an award-winning project. We don't know the regulatory procedures to sell this in the market. Denmark and the Netherlands, they have a proven track record, and they are supplying more than 50% of their energy from wind. I'm sure the Dutch and the Danish, they've already experienced the problems. Why don't we learn from their mistakes and take them as a role model, learn from their best practices? Don't you think this will speed up the things? Thank you. Cem, please. Well, we have the head of the Renewable Energy Office, and we also have the general director of the office. For years, we talked about these problems, and we always encourage the government to facilitate the certification processes and to facilitate communication and collaboration between the industry, the universities, and government agencies. And as we just said, and you saw in the presentation, it takes so many years, and to pay for your R&D team and your staff, a lot of money is wasted. I mean, when I'm talking about millions of dollars, the actual R&D is maybe a couple of millions. The rest is the personnel cost and the permissions and all other expenses. I mean, I know we cannot solve this in this room, but I think this is a communication issue as well. We are more than happy to help you. Please come visit us. If there is anything I can help, I will be more than happy to assist you. Come visit us. Thank you. Serpil, well, in the last 2 years we talked about Mill West project, about this Mill West. Mill West doesn't have TEA, doesn't have a type certificate. I don't know what we're going to do about it. Even that project doesn't have a certificate. Well, one university is working on that. Certification is a huge problem in Turkey. The easiest way to solve this is Turkish government can support development, or development agencies can support the companies. The best thing about, the good thing about these conferences, everyone leaves the room with a take-home lesson. I understand the industry needs support, incentives and subsidies in terms of R&D. The universities need more support. And I sincerely hope that we can build a better environment for all of you. But I can tell you that our ministry and other ministries of the Turkish government are committed to support local developers. And we do our best to give all available support. And I hope better supports will come. Okay. And this is the very last question. Good evening. Erkan Acar from Havza. I'm the head of Chamber of Commerce. I've been here for 2 days, but I'm not happy with this conference. We are investors. We are investors. We are not producers. Serpil and Yalçın, what they said is also concerns our city. In my region, there are dozens of companies who are candidates for non-licensed production. I'm here to represent the members of my chamber. Serpil, we did not understand what's going on. Like, I mean, I'm the municipality. I dealt with a company. I know I have the height of my mast, I have the diameter of my turbine, and then they told us the reports will come from YEGEM in 7 days. And you are asking the certified translator to certify the documents. So what happens if there is a problem? I mean, 15 out of 27 companies signed the contract with the same company. Per company, we spent 80,000 lira, but we don't know what's going to happen. It's just one of the issues. I mean, I'm not saying we're not doing any mistakes in paperwork. But say I want to continue with a different provider. But sometimes what happens if my provider doesn't deliver on time? And all the providers are asking, have you completed your wind measurements? No, we didn't. We're just checking with the road, with the wind map and YEGAM's charts. We're just following YEGAM's charts and taking them by granted, and we are investing just because we trust the data provided by YEGAM. What are we going to do? Serpil. I understand you're an investor. To get a license, you don't have to submit the measurements, but your providers should take it seriously and do their own measurements. What happens if I give you approval? What are you going to do if your turbine doesn't work? I mean, I strongly recommend that you work with serious companies. Companies that we are asking certification, I know there are some serious companies that they offer all the support you might need. And then there are some companies that are not serious, and we don't take them seriously either. And if the company has a certificate, they just bring their certificate, the original, and then we say, okay, I saw it. But I mean, if your provider doesn't have a certificate, that means they are not serious. I mean, I am a government officer. I am supposed to follow the rules. If your products are not certified, I cannot approve them. And I mean, and I cannot even imagine how you're going to produce energy. What happens if it doesn't turn anyway? You have to think twice. You have to make sure that it is efficient. You have to calculate how much production you're going to make. Thank you, Serpil. Yalçın has a remark. If you're going for a non-licensed wind power, feasibility is first. This is our recommendation. I had a chance to visit a wind turbine manufacturing factory outside Turkey. Wind cannot guarantee you power. Wind on this location may not be as strong as here, 1 kilometer away from here. That is why before committing an investment, yes, the maps, the charts of the government will give you an opinion, but they are never sufficient to commit an investment, because the government agencies are preparing those charts to direct investors to certain regions, but we cannot guarantee a spot. So to install a turbine to a particular spot, you need to do your own measurements and calculations. And the second thing is, in Turkey, we made a lot of mistakes. For example, some turbines installed 15 years ago in Germany, they were dismantled, painted, and imported to Turkey. I know there are second-hand turbines in Turkey from Germany, and some people want to sell them. The regulation is clear. The age of your turbine cannot be more than 5 years. That means you have to buy a new turbine, not a second-hand one. And in Çorum, I understand their concern. They need to be close to the substation and to the grid. And then they have 180 days to get the project approval. And to do that, they need to go to TAA, and then you have to identify the turbine and brand and model. Either you do all your analysis and ask for approval, and then before the preliminary approval you ask for amendments, or right in the beginning you choose the right companies? Well, government officers follow the book. They have their regulations, they launch a tender, and the winning companies come build the plant. For small sizes, the current regulation works, but for larger scales, there's a big disadvantage. No producer tenders for a 1 megawatt power plant in Turkey. Only a local company can do it, because you have to pay 3% letter of guarantee, and then if you win, you need to give another 3% letter of guarantee. No turbine manufacturer will transport their turbines before you open your letter of credit. Which company will take several millions of dollars of risk? The municipality comes, builds, operates, and then the municipality pays them. And if the municipality, and if the mayor changes, or if there's any financial issues, they won't get paid. So we have a serious problem in government procurement process. So maybe we can have the government banks to support this provincial banks, or the energy agency of the government. They have to find a solution. Otherwise, government agencies can never afford turbines with a capacity of greater than 1 megawatts. But local companies can try to do it, and your handicap is you need a call for tender, and then you are supposed to complete all the procedures in 6 months, and then complete the process. I know this is a problem, time is limited, but again, be careful with the selection of the providers. Çorum municipality is a different case, but you are talking about private industry buying turbines. But why don't you go for smaller sizes, turbines smaller than 1 megawatt, and tell the provider, give me all the licenses. You can go for a turnkey project. Well, I mean, in your case, it's a unique case, but we have to see what happens. It is difficult to source anything below 1 megawatts. There is 600, 900, but I mean, I suggest you decide quickly and get the approval. If you want an approval, you have to choose your turbine and give the drawings. Thank you. If there are further questions, you can ask them in private, because I will be in the room. I want to adjourn the session. I don't want to keep the room and the other attendees in the room. I want to thank to the organizers of this conference. We want to thank to the presenters of the conference. I want to thank to the participants who were with us until the last minute. And I'm sure the next conference will be a better experience. We are going home with lessons learned and with assignments, and I'm sure we will join our efforts to make things better. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Evet, bu arada organizasyon komitesinin bir
By the way, the organization committee will give the panelists a a set of thank you certificates. Thank you.